Like everything in life, superhero movies or comic book movies in extension have undergone the gradual but inevitable downward spiral of becoming shit. They were such an event back in the day, and by back in the day, I mean 2019. Pre-endgame, it was like we were getting at least 2 or 3 or maybe 4 even superhero movies every year, and they were hype. Everyone went out to watch these movies. They racked in unspeakable amounts of money, but now everything feels like dollar store replicas and cheap restaurant leftovers. I'm mostly talking about Marvel here, if you haven't noticed, because they are the ones that churn out the most amount of superhero content. The fall of these guys have faced is bigger than Rome. Even if they come out with something that's not painfully mediocre, the response they get is dull at best. The desperation has reached a point where they're going back performing necromancy to bring back dead old bodies, just to humiliate them again. Okay, Born Again was not that bad, but that's a whole another fucking colony of worms. Now, I know Invincible still exists, I know the Spider-Verse movie still exists, but they are more of an exception than a norm. So in these desperate and uncertain times, one nerd kind of knows what he's doing. After the first Guardians movie in 2014, he has not missed once. Before that, he was mostly involved with shitposts, like this show he made with his siblings. I mean, what the hell is this supposed to be? But now, he has become one of the most trustworthy creatives, not just working in the genre, but in general. Any project that's helmed by Gunn is at the very least gonna be entertaining. So what makes him worthy of such glaze? Well, a couple of things actually. The sheer respect and understanding he has of the characters he works with is one of James Gunn's strongest characteristics as a filmmaker and a writer, and what makes his stuff engaging to watch. That might seem obvious, but so many of these super shits just struggle with the characters they're supposed to be adapting. And this is not the case just in film or TV, even in video games. Everything has been stripped of any original identity to become a modern take. So you understand why it has become quite rare to see someone who really gives a shit what the original IP was, what the characters originally stood for. I feel like this became even more apparent with Superman, his latest film. Full confession, I'm not even a big fan of Superman. I grew up in a time where he was fading away from public perception, and when he came back, he was this masculine, unfazed god of destruction and self-pity that just didn't jam well with me. It's been a while since Superman has felt like, Superman. But even with my reservations about the character, I still went to the theaters to watch this one because that's the kind of trust James Gunn has built with me. I knew he was going to do something different.
It is a tightrope act, because what is it about the character that needs to remain the same, that is truly important to who the character is, and where can you take the chances and go in the other direction?
The new movie is a colorful and heartfelt journey of hope that at the same time doesn't feel shallow. It's one of the most positive movies I've watched in a while that didn't feel like it was just pretending. Superman wasn't just a bright and dumb hopeful Boy Scout, he was a bright and dumb hopeful Boy Scout with depth. He had so much character and charisma, yet he struggled physically and mentally trying to come to terms with the reality he was facing, which might be a sign of weakness to some, but ultimately, it takes this immortal extracultural alien, brings him down to earth, and makes him as human as the rest of us. It makes Superman feel even stronger. For him to reject the ideas of his parents he worshipped all his life, to break through that, to break through all the hate and the scorn he faced, and still see the beauty and empathize with every living being. Can you show a Superman in this century, or even ever, that Superman harder than this? This loyal treatment wasn't just restricted to the main character either. All of the iconic characters that are important to Superman's identity, like Lois, like Luthor, and even the Justice Gang, were given the care and the time they deserve. That is what makes this film special. No character feels underdeveloped, and they're all equally entertaining and fun to watch. Speaking of fun, humor is an aspect of superhero movies that has had its ups and deep downs, it reached its precipice of annoyance in the 2020s when people spit at even the sign of an incoming joke to combat it somehow. I think the big reason behind that, and this has been talked to the death, is that it undermines scenes that were supposed to be a serious attempt at developing character or pushing the story forward, in service of making it more digestible for every audience possible.
We don't make films, we make movies. Movies!
Now, James Gunn movies are famous, or maybe even infamous, for being joke heavy. You could even say his film specifically had a huge hand in kind of popularizing the quippy and sarcastic comic book character trait that carried over to so many superhero projects down the line. But why Gunn's films still work and become the best in its genre the year it come out and the others become forgettable dog poop is because he doesn't just splash the humor everywhere in the hopes of getting as big an audience as he can. He splashes with purpose, and he knows when to turn the quip scale down, get serious, and give the characters some breathing room to develop and grow. The Guardians movies are a great showcase of this holy balance. I mean, technically it's not a perfect balance since those movies are 89% comedy, but a balance in terms of the tone the scene needs more than the tone being forced upon it. You know what I mean? Rocket's extremely brutal past, him finally coming to terms with it and giving this absolute monster his due, Peter's confrontation with Ego, all of these scenes are dark, adrenaline-inducing, and sometimes downright traumatizing, but these films also show wonder and absolute joy without having to be funny. Emotions is what Gunn is going for, real emotions. They give the jokes and the quips a layer of context and authenticity that makes them feel more real, makes the characters feel like real animals. It works the other way around too, in that the jokes and the banter give the more serious scenes that much more intensity. It all makes sense. Yeah, of course they joke around all the time. They're hiding years of suppressed trauma underneath the surface. They don't want to explode. This pattern was very much also the blueprint for Peacemaker, I feel like, which deserves a video on its own. It is the absolute best thing James Gunn has made. Actually, maybe I will make a video on it once Season 2 concludes. No matter what Gunn film or show, without exception, the highlight always is the team. The living, breathing, circulating, pulsating, I'll stop there, heart of his projects. This is fundamentally what sets his films apart from all the other movies that try to replicate his success. This is what doesn't translate well to other writers or directors' films, because it's a James Gunn trademark at this point, a tight band of ragtag losers that are flawed, withered, and extremely different from each other, sometimes in perspectives, sometimes also in species. But still, all of them are somewhat hopeful in their own ways. It's basically like a support group that also works as a superhero team. Everyone plays off each other so well, they're pretty much perfect for one another. You believe in their relationships, their hardships, and you stick with their decisions no matter how selfish or wrong or not superhero it may seem, because you know where they're coming from. The story doesn't just use them as tools to tell a narrative, the story is its characters, their journey, their redemption, quips, banter, and all. And all that culminates obviously in cool action sequences that are the ultimate payoff for their growth as a team and as a family. This all sounds very cheesy and Toretto family coded, I know.
I don't need oxygen when I got family.
But seeing them working as a team after all they've been through feels quite satisfying. It turns out the treasure really was the friends and family we made along the way. James Gunn figured out the superhero formula and has been using it since. It's not rocket science, but even if the theory is not really hard to understand, the execution is where they fall and where James Gunn's talents lie. A team that you care about, that care about each other, that keeps each other in check and is there for one another through neighborhoods, through countries, and through galaxies.